Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Sustainability Dialogues in Saudi Arabia podcast, where we take a deeper dive into this massive transformation that we're seeing across the kingdom, aligned with Vision 2030 towards sustainability, hoping to uncover some insights for stakeholders to help navigate the road ahead. Today, we're tackling the critical question of how green technology will advance future resilience in Saudi Arabia. And I'm joined here today by our special guest speakers, Dr. Abdulaziz Al-Shabani, Deputy Minister for Water Affairs at the Ministry of Environment, Water, and Agriculture of Saudi Arabia, Dr. Mohammed Mahmoud, Senior Fellow and Director of the Climate and Water Program at the Middle East Institute, Tariq Nada, Chief Technical Officer from Saudi Arabia, Vice President of Water at Aqua Power, and our host, engineer Zainab Alameen, Vice President of Digital Transformation at Microsoft Arabia. Zainab, I first want to kick off with you as the host to get your opening comments on this topic that we're tackling today, essentially. Of course, green technology is an accelerator to achieving these targets and these ambitions.
Absolutely. First of all, Brian, thank you for having us and for starting this podcast. And I would like to thank our speakers for being part of this podcast. This is a first of a multiple series podcasts that are focused on sustainability around 5 themes, which is climate finance, green technology, energy transition, and circular economy, and smart cities. When we look at water and water scarcity and this part of the world in Saudi Arabia, it's very essential and very important. In Saudi Arabia is the largest water desalination producer in the world, with 60 of its water consumption coming from water desalination. And with Vision 2030 and multiple initiatives that are happening, this is a very important topic and a priority for research that was announced by His Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman recently. So I'm looking forward for the really exciting discussion and welcoming all of you for this episode. Thank you.
Dr. Al-Shabani, I just want to go to you for your opening comments. Obviously, with the Saudi Vision 2030 put forward, the kingdom's push towards sustainability, water security essentially sits at the top of the agenda. What are your opening comments on the overall topic and the outlook ahead from your perspective?
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you, Brian, and thanks to the rest of the speakers, and thank you for the Microsoft team for organizing this meeting. When we talk about water scarcity, I want to tell you that Saudi Arabia is taking this subject very seriously. We recognize water challenges. This is not something very new. We have always been in this, and we have always adopted, and we have always found solutions through the means and tools that we have at the time. So in recent years, probably started with the Saudi Vision 2030, and from it, many things came out, including the National Water Strategy, the new water law, new policies, and through the next 30 minutes, I'm going to tell you about some achievements that we are very happy to share. And I think we have addressed the water challenges in Saudi Arabia in a systematic way, and we leverage the right tools and technologies to manage our water resources right, and to increase the opportunities for sustainability in our natural resources.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Just want to bring in Tarek for your opening comments, of course, coming from Aqua Power, being a part of the industrial side of solutions. Your overall perspective on water scarcity, and of course, the the ambition and the roadmap ahead towards achieving water security.
Okay, thank you, and very good afternoon and good morning to Dr. Muhammad being in USA now. It is like 6 a.m. in the morning. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Abdulaziz. I will just take it straightforward to the technology portion of the equation. See, the desalination industry, starting back late 60s in Saudi Arabia, had made Saudi Arabia the capital of desalination by means of history all the way to where we are, by production, by the number of the plants and the assets in the kingdom. And we have been through a build-up of desal technology all the way to where we are at the moment. And the center or the driver of the technology improvement from where it started to where we are building world largest plants, state-of-the-art engineering, the motto was nothing but the water scarcity, which is the main driver here. Saudi Arabia and the desal industry has been always one step ahead, influencing the market where to go, because as you rightly mentioned, and Dr. Zainab and Dr. Abdulaziz, it is the main source of supplying water to the grid for the human consumption. So our desalination plants is usually built to supply water for consumption, for human drinking water. So it is not for agriculture or industry. And that's why now we see building plants between 600,000 and 1 million meter cube per day between the private sector and the governmental entities to serve this purpose. So in terms of technology, and answering the main question where we are gathered here for how green technology will advance it, is that the technology itself is the core driver to make it sustainable for the purpose itself.
Just following up on that point is, in terms of, from your perspective, we're looking at desalination, as you said, is the main source for delivering clean water, not just in Saudi but across the region. Obviously, it's very energy intensive in terms of desalination. What progress are you seeing from your perspective in terms of making it more efficient and sustainable for the future ahead?
I will tell you where are we at the moment and what is the next step. Where are we at the moment? Just in comparison to like 10 years ago, the desalination industry has reduced its energy intensive consumption in the range between 50 to 75%. Just 10, 15 years, switching from thermal to RO in a mega projects, just reduce this power consumption, which is one of the most debatable aspects in seawater desalination. So this is where we are at the moment. So if you talk about in comparison to reduce 70% to reach where we are at the moment, you talk about something at the range of 3 kilowatt hour per meter cube in comparison to 20. That's a huge step, and it was not even projected back in the early 2000, because at that time the main driver of the desalination, which is the thermal, was like, okay, it is mature and there is nothing next. The next step came by changing the technology itself to introducing the reverse osmosis in a commercial large RO, and the private sector has been the main driver to take it next. So where we are at the moment is that the current desalination technology, which is reverse osmosis, is almost mature worldwide. The extra fine tuning here and there is almost making it between 95 to 100% perfection. So the next step to meet the 2030 vision will be something about changing the technology to a new technology. And this is where the decision makers will influence the market to go next.
Dr. Mahmoud, I just want to bring you in on that for your opening comments. Obviously, creating the right environment in which innovation and technology can prosper is a big part of this. What is your outlook in terms of the goal for water security in the kingdom, but not just the kingdom, but regionally, internationally, given your expertise?
Yeah, thanks, Brian, and thanks for having me join this very esteemed panel with wonderful fellow panelists. Very happy to be here. I think what I'd like to underline as part of my opening comments is really the need and the urgency. Fellow panelists have highlighted, Saudi Arabia's existing challenges because of its constrained ability to access water supply, whether having the need to rely on desal or even limited groundwater supply. And so for a region, and certainly a country that's a big part of the region that's under sort of the threat of water scarcity as a baseline, the need grows even further once we consider the growing impact of climate change on the region and certainly on the kingdom itself. Water scarcity issues, drought issues will get more severe, not just from a supply side. Certainly, there's limited natural sources of surface water supplies. Really, it's primarily groundwater or ocean desal. But even in terms of stressors on demand, as temperatures increase, there's going to be more need for water, both on certainly the urban and agricultural side. And so just this really underlines the need for better technology, for improved a mainstreaming of green technology, so that the region, and certainly Saudi Arabia, can be more responsive and able to adapt better in terms of how climate changes can potentially impact its sources of water supply.
Zainab, I just want to bring you back in there. We're talking about technology. Of course, there's the hard side of technology with osmosis, but digitalization plays a crucial role in water security. Where do you see the advancement of digitalization and digital technologies going in the future towards achieving water resilience?
When it comes to technology solutions, there are solutions that are developed or that are being developed to understand water and water-related risks due to climate change. Use data to reduce water and make smarter decisions about water consumptions and improve the water quality and conservation. Technologies like IoT and AI are playing a critical role in improving water quality and water efficiency. For example, there are multiple technologies that are available today, like Azure IoT central government app templates that includes remote, real-time water quality monitoring and water consumption monitoring that are geared toward reducing water consumption. There is as well a huge room for innovation. Water is one of the 4 priorities that Microsoft have committed when it comes to sustainability to be carbon negative, water positive, and have zero waste by 2030, and build a planetary computer that contribute to the data available for to support the conservatory researchers, governments, and research and innovation. So there is a lot of the work that is happening, and much more that is needed, and the necessity is there, and it's a matter of innovation.
Dr. Al-Shabani, just building off of that, you had mentioned the achievements the ministry has accomplished in terms of technology and working towards water resilience. Can you just build off of that a little bit and describe the initiatives that have been taking place?
Yes, the use of technologies is at the heart of our strategies, actually, and we recognize that we need to utilize technologies for everything related to water, whether it is management, resilience, whether it is production, detection of leaks, distribution, and so on. We cannot, of course, ignore, from my position, as the Deputy Minister for Water, we cannot ignore the concept of integrated water resources management, because technology has to serve in a bigger concept and framework. So we take that as our model for managing our resources, and of course setting the national priorities. We need to know also that the largest consumption of water is in agriculture. More than 85% of water goes to agriculture. So we have to direct also our attention to conserving and managing the demand in agriculture. If we go back to the National Water Strategy, the National Water Strategy has 5 main dimensions or objectives that are availability, quality, environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, and affordability. And within the strategy, it sets the levers and the enablers. Among the enablers, of course, is what I already told you about: the integrated water resource management, the supply chain policies, and of course technologies and managing, monitoring and managing our resources. Saudi Arabia has always been hot and scarce in water resources. This is not something very new. As I said, we have always adopted, even as early as 1930s. We, during King Abdulaziz's time, they created what we called Kindasa. It is a water distillation plant along the coast, the Red Sea coast. We have studied the groundwater resources in the 1930s and 40s. We have brought experts, and the development of this management have continued through the decades until the time we are in right now. In terms of policies and demand and managing the demand, and of course, and depending on technologies on desalination. Of course, my colleagues probably are at better position to talk about technologies in desalination. But I know our SWCC, Saline Water Conversion Corporation, leads probably world activities in innovation in desalination technologies, in minimizing the impact on environment, on consuming less fuel, on reducing the footprint of desalination, but also on the agriculture. Again, we depend on remote sensing, on monitoring water consumption. We depend on smart metering, both in wells and in households. We depend on smart bid for the whole supply chain for detection of leaks, because we need every drop of water that we have. Of course, we count on technology, and I think the coming years will witness advancements in the utilization of technologies along the whole supply chain of water, whether it is domestic or agricultural or industrial.
Just building off of that, obviously it's a massive, let's say, challenge, but of course with multiple opportunities for the future. It requires collaboration in a sense. What is your outlook for enhanced partnerships and collaboration regionally, internationally, of course, throughout the kingdom with the private sector? What role do you see that playing in terms of the future of water resilience in Saudi?
Okay, many people think that water challenges are local, but I think, yes, they might be local, but they have global dimensions.
Well, I'm from California originally, and they have massive water situation at the moment in terms of droughts.
And again, I can use the example of California as an opportunity to learn from each other. We always to refer to examples from California and through the utilization of treated wastewater and so on. So I'll just give you an example of what we did during the G20 presidency, Saudi presidency of the G20 in 2020. And we were engaged in this debate whether to introduce water as part of the discussions under the umbrella of G20 or whether this is done only at a local scale. And we had very interesting discussions with the countries, and I'm glad that our view and had, I wouldn't say prevailed, but convinced the rest of our colleagues from the 20 countries that we need to debate and discuss water challenges and issues on a global stage. And G20 is one of them, but there are also other forums and stages. So we need to learn from each other on technologies, on investment, creative financing solutions for water projects, on engaging private sector, on dialogue between countries on shared water resources, and on many issues. So I think it is very important that whatever countries, whatever local issues or challenges are good opportunities for other countries to learn from and exchange ideas and solutions.
Tarek, just building off of that, obviously, Aqua Power has done massive innovation within the kingdom regionally and
Yes.
has international partnerships as well.
Yes.
We're talking about knowledge sharing. We mentioned the G20 just there. We have COP27 coming up in Egypt, COP28 coming up in the UAE. In the context of Saudi Arabia, what do you see from in terms of water security that can be brought to the rest of the world in terms of
Okay.
that knowledge sharing and innovation from the private sector perspective?
Okay, I will answer you, but before I just want to go back
Sure.
to a statement made by Dr. Abdulaziz saying that back in 1930s, a Kindasa plant. Just to let you know, it is few kilometers from where I am. And guess what? The reason to call it Kindasa, because it is a condenser. So the local people refer to it as a Kindasa. And it is still here. It is still a roundabout, a special roundabout here in Jeddah. So people can have a look that the industry is almost like 90 years old in the kingdom. So next time you are all invited when you come to Jeddah to see Kindasa, which is condenser. And
We have to get all the stakeholders around the world to visit as well.
Yes. And
hopefully this will shed some light.
And answering your question from two perspectives, what Aqua Power has been doing in terms of innovation, especially in desalination, and the integration with the private sector to be a major player in the industry. As we speak now, we are, as a Saudi company, we are the world's largest private sector in the desalination industry with a portfolio of 6.25 million meter cube per day scattered between plants here in Saudi Arabia and with the GCC, Emirates, Oman. We have entered the industry late 2005, our first plant in 2009, and now in 2022, we just commissioned the world's largest RO plant in Rabigh, and one of the top three main pillars to reach to where we are is the technology innovation. We have never built a plant, then we go next, copy paste. It has never been the case. So we have almost 17 plants. Each, when you go from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, all the way to 16, there is an extra mile. I will give you an example. For example, Rabigh, which is 600,000 meter cube per day. And at the moment, it is one of the most, if not the most efficient commercial RO plants. Then we had to go build the same in the East Coast, Jubail. But we did not just take it and copy paste the engineering. No, we had add the extra innovation part, which is partially powered by renewable energy. And again, we have the same principle in Tawila, which is 900,000, which will come into operation in October or November this year. And now what we are thinking about next, okay, we have an RO very efficient, then an RO coupled with renewables for partial powering. Our next goal will be fully powered plants on renewable energy. And this is how we take it next by next. Although in between, this is when it comes to the new development of projects. The existing plans, the way we run, because by the end of the day, we are a private investor, developer, co-owner, then operator for 25 years. We just try to do the optimization based on O&M experience on time-to-time basis, even to enhance a current asset which is already existing by, for example, I'll give you two examples, by digitalization. And I can tell you it is one of the most promising technologies in the desal industry. Applying artificial intelligence or machine learning at the best, and there is a good part of it, which is there is a healthy competition out there in the market to provide it. So the benefit comes to the industry itself from technology perspective. Second is the decarbonization, and there is so many elements for decarbonization, reducing the power consumption, making reducing the CO2 emission, making the brine, which is coming back to the sea, less chemically hazard. And there is multiple breakdown to it, which is we can take it in a further forum.
It seems that aqua power. Oh, sorry, if you want to.
And the last part of the equation is as simple as this. There is usually a platform gathering all the desal industry main stakeholders under one umbrella, which is IDA. And usually this is happening every 2 years. And usually people will go there with the mentality of sharing the best practice, the lessons learned, what is next for us from a desal perspective, from everyone in the industry under one roof. And this is how we take it next.
So collaboration, communication, partnerships are a big part of that. But just from your perspective as well, it seems that aqua power has been able to accelerate rapidly the past 5 years, for example, in this space. You know, we're talking about reverse osmosis, we're talking about renewable desalination. I would say a bit ahead of a lot of those who are in the industry right now. Our stakeholders obviously listening to this podcast are at different parts of their journey right now on their roadmaps. From your experience, what has been the recommendations in order to accelerate the adoption of the digital technologies that you just said, to accelerate the developments of these plants, essentially, and kind of the barriers that were overcome in order to do so?
See, as a private developer, investor, the main driver to drive the technology next is to optimize what we call life cycle cost. Okay, we want to make water at the lowest cost, building a reliable, most advanced plants. So putting all of this into equation, the main thing to take it next is developing the technology itself and add the innovation part of it. And this is what is not a secret recipe at all, because everyone is trying to do this, but we are taking it a bit serious.
Dr. Mahmoud, just building off of that, obviously, in any of these segments, the balance between people, planet, and profit comes into play. What is your outlook for that in terms of water security and your recommendations on achieving that? We just mentioned the cost side of the technology. How do you see that progressing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know, Dr. Abdulaziz and Mr. Tariq, they hit on a few things that I wanted to touch on further, just in terms of how to achieve that, right? In terms of achieving water security for the kingdom, and tying in innovation to do that. And certainly cost is a part of that. And the way I think of it, and I think others share this view, is there's a short-term track and a long-term track of how you incorporate green technology or innovation to address some of these water resilience or water security issues. Certainly, the long-term track is more on these innovations that improve existing technologies and mechanisms that are in place, things that are being developed more on the research and development side. The short-term track is leveraging existing technologies and practices sort of on the green technology front in a different way. So for example, when we think of, let's say, agricultural water use, which is certainly, of course, the largest sort of water footprint of usage in the kingdom, how do you reduce that water footprint while still maintaining that same level of productivity for that agricultural industry, right? So how do you improve agricultural water use efficiency and potential conservation? So things like mainstreaming, through technology, drip irrigation efficiently and optimally versus, maybe not flood irrigation, maybe that's not as widespread, but still, how do you use technology to optimally apply drip irrigation? How do you use technology to optimally reduce water loss in the system, whether through in the water conveyance systems or in how water is dispersed in agricultural fields? There's ways where these technologies already exist. It's just a matter of pushing it a little bit further. And the same thing, on the longer track, Mr. Tariq talked about, improving the energy efficiency of desal, right? So there's, I'm sure there's in the research and development side, there are a lot of organizations and research firms that are looking into this, right? How do you squeeze out more desalinated water with using less energy, right? The other thing, talking about water use, looking at the urban side. So I'll give you another example of how to leverage existing technologies in a way that make them more greener, more efficient. So when we talk about urban water use, we have systems in place that treat wastewater to non-potable water standard, right? For use in maybe agriculture, for use in maybe outdoor irrigation and lawns and that type of thing.
There's certain challenges that come along with that, right? In terms of use for agriculture from different
yeah. Yes. So that technology exists. In addition, we have water treatment technology and systems that treat non-potable to drinking water standard. An example of how to leverage existing technologies, why not link those two systems together? And this exists in certain parts of the world where they treat water that's maybe at the level of wastewater in terms of quality, all the way up to drinking water standard. So in a way, you're increasing that water reuse element for the same amount of water resource that's originally been allocated or distributed for urban water use. So there are ways to certainly capitalize existing technologies to achieve sort of a greener outcome while we're still waiting for these innovations in research and development that take it to the next level in these various areas.
Well, I think I have two questions as a follow-up to that in a sense, which is what would be kind of your short-term low-hanging fruit in leveraging those existing technologies? This is a regional, international challenge essentially overall. And then when you look at new technologies, it seems that we are kind of in a place where there's a lot of pilot stages going on right now. We're in that pilot phase. But how do we scale up those technologies? It seems that scaling up to reduce costs and implementation is a big, I would say, opportunity but challenge at the moment.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, my opinion, one of the unique benefits, I think, for these types of technologies or test beds, if you will, or pilots to occur in Saudi Arabia is I think there's, compared to, say, other countries, if we think about the West or the US, there's, let's just say, less restrictions in terms of from the governance level to apply these types of projects, right? There's more access to resources, more access to sort of a collaborative front where you don't have to go through a lot of restrictive regulation, or from a governance level, have to pass things through Congress that, in the case of the U.S., or pass things through government that takes forever. Yeah, exactly. It takes forever to get done. I think the benefit in Saudi Arabia is there's a willingness to and more flexibility to test these new technologies, to kind of push forward in potential areas of innovations, regardless of success or failure. And I think that's a great opportunity. Is that Saudi Arabia has that flexibility, has that sort of opportunity to take that risk that other nations can't. And use the example of what's going on with a project like Nuaim, which wouldn't be feasible in a lot of other places because of just restrictions of governance, of regulation, that I think Saudi Arabia has the benefit of embarking on these types of projects without these limitations in a shorter time frame.
So the environment is there, which allows for acceleration and innovation at the moment.
Absolutely.
Now it's more moving towards the implementation and how do we achieve essentially the targets that we're looking at. Zainab, I just want to bring you back in, of course, from the technology side. Looking at from your experience, where you see in the context of Saudi Arabia, how that innovation, the knowledge that's been achieved within the kingdom can be transferred regionally and internationally. Obviously, Microsoft is a global company, but with your experience within the kingdom, what is occurring? How can that be transferred outside and that knowledge be shared?
Let me first. I have actually two comments. One to Dr.
Sure.
Abdulaziz, and then the other one to Dr. Mohammed. Let's start with the latest one regarding the regulations and innovation and what Saudi can offer in terms of innovation when it comes to green technology in water, and how can that excel. An example of a very good example of this is what Saudi Arabia did with fintech and the sandbox that was created by SAMA, where a few of the startups were allowed to use the technology under that sandbox, and that created great business models that are today getting used. And now CITC is building another sandbox for emerging technology. So maybe that's another area that the ministry can take to have a sandbox for water and green technologies in water, which has been done successfully here. And working very closely with the government, I can see that the energy is there. The Vision 2030 supports it, and all of the regulators are working very closely with us as Microsoft and through different advisory boards in supporting innovation that we don't see anywhere else in the world, which is really great opportunity for innovation. And touching on Dr. Abdulaziz, you mentioned earlier that certainly the water issue and the water scarcity is not specific to Saudi Arabia, and that is for sure. It's there. The world is expecting a water crisis. According to McKinsey and Company, humans now withdraw about 4.3 trillion cubic meters of fresh water from the planet water basins every year. And most of it, as you mentioned, are going to agriculture. Similar to what is happening here in Saudi, about 70% of that, and industry only accounts for 19%, where households are 11%. And according to the United Nations Water, today 2 billion people lack access to safely managed drinking water services, and 4.2 billion people lack safely managed sanitation services. And then 1 in 4 people may live in a country that is affected by chronic shortage of water, of fresh water, by 2050. So it is a global crisis, and we are in Saudi Arabia. We're trying to achieve ahead of everyone, or trying to address this in a really proactive way. And there is a huge opportunity in Saudi, being the largest desalination water producing country in the world. And on top of that is as well, it's the largest water consuming, or one of the largest water consumers in the world per day, and that consumption is forecasted to grow from 8 million cubic meter currently to 12.3 cubic meters per day. However, Saudi can potentially become a laboratory for water management solutions, and the presence of multiple research centers and water technologies, and the availability of international expertise, and the very strong collaborative government and initiatives that are working very closely with us. We can see it in the mega projects, the announcement of NEOM, Red Sea, NEOM that aims to become a city recycling of all of the wastewater generated and eradicated the environment impact water desalination. Also, lastly, the Crown Prince's announcement of the directions of research and development and innovation national priorities a few weeks ago focused on sustainability and also focused on water scarcity as one of the existential priorities that the country is focusing on and planning to achieve about 2.5% of GDP coming from innovation and research and development by 2040. So the opportunity in Saudi Arabia is huge. The policy makers and the government will is there, and the investment, the capital investment is there, and the international expertise also is there and supports this. So I see the formula of success is really huge.
So you can see the opportunity in terms of exporting that knowledge and expertise globally. As you mentioned, it's a global challenge. Dr. Abdulaziz, we mentioned innovation and research. We've spoken about industry's role in this challenge. We've spoken about the environment which has been created to help stakeholders work fast and accelerate towards it. Those are three pillars essentially to a four-pillar chair. The fourth pillar, which is part of the national water strategy, addresses society essentially. I just wanted to get your perspective on this, with Saudi Arabia having one of the largest youth populations in the world, having a society where there is large consumption of water. Where are the opportunities from that perspective in which we can work towards in terms of water management? How can we better promote sustainability on that foundation level as well?
Okay, thank you, Brian, and I thank Zainab also for her comments. Before I answer this question, may I also give some remarks regarding
of course.
Tariq and Muhammad Said. I'm very glad about the advancements made by Aquapower, and I must say that part of that advancement is reflected, or is a reflection of of the programs and initiatives in Saudi Arabia that promotes these advancements. So I just give you an example that for the plants to be built by private companies, for example, private sector, there is a condition that 20% for now of the power source of the energy comes from renewables. The SWCC is also leading research on minimizing the environmental impact. So in the future, you will see less and less brine going back to the sea. And so I don't want to take some of the credit of Aquapower, but we have a government that is very supporting, very agile. We have less bureaucracy than before, very adaptive and very supportive. Our Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture is probably the first ministry other than Ministry of Education that has Deputy Ministry for Research and Innovation, because we really believe that technology and innovation will provide solutions to the challenges. We have to count on technologies for sustainability. So back to your question, I heard more than once that Saudi Arabia is one of the largest consumers. I don't think we are higher than the international standards or rates.
Yeah.
What is different is that we have population growth, a higher, probably high population growth. We have a very fast economic and industrial development that we have to catch up also in terms of providing water services. As you all know, from United Nations SDGs and water is one of the or water service and sanitation is one of the basic human rights, and we have full coverage of water for the whole population of Saudi Arabia. There are KPIs that we monitor. If there is a settlement that does not receive water through network, it will receive water through other means like trucks or providing drilling wells and providing water in place. I think as also Zainab said that, or I think you mentioned that Saudi Arabia also is peculiar in its natural conditions. In terms of geological setting, in terms of natural setting, in terms of variation in climate and elevations. We have deserts, we have mountains, we have very high elevation mountains, 3,000 meters, that we have to get desalinated water across those mountains. We have a network of 9,000 kilometers of transmitting water. This is other than 125,000 kilometers of networks through urban cities. So I think I go back to what I said at the beginning. It is management. It is the integrated water resources management. It is the utilization of technologies in managing, in sustaining the resources. May I give you some examples of what we mean by this? We know that probably Saudi Arabia is the largest in terms of non-renewable groundwater resources, and that's why the stress or what is defined as water stress, Saudi Arabia is high on this indicator. So we are trying to minimize the dependence on this groundwater, on this non-renewable groundwater. We try to prolong its availability as much as we can. So we try to shift the support for agriculture to go to the areas where you have renewable water resources. And we also increase our efforts in rainwater harvesting. So we build dams. We try to target places where you have higher rainfall. We support the agriculture that depends on treated wastewater, for example. So we produce about 5 million cubic meter of treated wastewater every day. We plan to use 5 million, all of the 5 million cubic meter of treated wastewater per day. It will go up to 10 million probably in 2030. We have plans to transmit these amounts of water to agricultural lands where we'll develop agriculture. We'll use it in also industries. So again, it is all about management. It is about sustainability. It is about conserving every drop of water. And that's why we also created a National Center for Water Efficiency. And this is also, this center goes to government buildings to check for utilization, to check for efficiency. It develops guidelines, it develops awareness programs. So we're trying to use multiple methodologies or multiple ways to maximize the resource, to develop resources, to manage the demand, to increase efficiency, so that we, at the end, we try to get as sustainable as possible. Sustainability, of course, is a relative term here.
Right. Just unfortunately, 30 minutes goes by pretty quickly. It seems that the conversation has been pretty robust so far. But just moving into closing comments, Dr. Abdulaziz, of course, we're talking about the innovation, the management, the technology side of things. I briefly mentioned youth there. Where do you see youth playing a role in advancing progress in this space? Saudi Arabia has mass potential with a younger generation. How do you see that role progressing? And of course, advancing the skill sets in sustainability. These are spaces that we probably didn't know would exist 5 to 10 years ago, for example. What is your outlook for that?
Okay. This is also another dimension that we also consider, and of course the young generation is the future, and we try to engage them. We have a program of capacity development, training. We work with universities in creating new programs, and of course that is the factory where we'll get skills developed with the young generation. We have hackathons of technologies for the environment and the water and the agriculture. We support young youth, and we support women also in agriculture and small businesses, and funding their activities. And I think strongly believe that the breakthroughs will come through these efforts, if not today, tomorrow, by the seeds that we plant today in these young talents.
Thank you, Dr. Abdulaziz. Tarek, I just want to bring you in for your closing comments, of course, as a round out to answering that critical question and building off of the Deputy Minister's comments right there.
Thank you so much. Although Dr. Abdulaziz covered everything, so he left nothing for us. But if I would put something in the end, it's just to summarize and give you a life example in terms of technology improvements and next step. Now, the system led by the ministry and the off-taker and all the stakeholders, we have a condition now for the new plants that the off-takers is giving you the flexibility to utilize percentage of the project finance itself to pilot testing. So you have an actual pilot testing to prove by the end of X number of years, is this yes or no? So to this extent that it is by governance that you need to go and show something for the new project financed to test a new technology. And again, this is will not be ever materialized without having a system led by the ministry and off-taker and everyone. So this is the good part of it, which is very good for the industry here and for the whole world to address the water scarcity. On the youth, I just want to give you a life example. And again, wouldn't be happen without the support of the ministry. 2-3 years ago, actually 3 years ago, in Aqua Power, we just thought about, yes, okay, what are we giving for the youth, which is majority of this country, in terms of showing how they can be part of innovation in desalination to realize the importance and the scarcity. So we ended up launching a program called "The Power Is Within You." So we go out there in the day of National Day of Saudi Arabia, announcing it, calling the youth, males and females under 25 years, to come with an idea. Then we filter it. We end up with 3 every year. Then we host them, we adopt them, we sponsor them, we put them in the proper labs, we provide everything. And depending on their timeline, they will come and say, listen, I need 2 years, 3 years. So fully sponsored, adopted, everything facilitated for them to come with the end result. It happened. Now we are coming into the 3rd year. I can tell you, we started by participants of like 50 to 100. Now we talk about thousands coming, but we will go with 2-3 of them. And that's it. Thank you so much, Dr. Abdulaziz, Dr. Muhammad, Zainab. And as you just said, we were planning for half an hour, but talking about water and desalination and technology cannot have a half an hour discussion at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tarek. Dr. Mahmoud, I just would like to get your closing comments on the overall topic as we wrap up.
I'm very encouraged by what Mr. Tarek and Ms. Zainab said about, actual examples on the ground of some of the things that are happening, certainly with the youth and just actual applications. And I think I agree that Dr. Abdulaziz has covered all the great points. So at best, I can only maybe modestly repeat some of the things he said. But the one thing I wanted to underline and highlight that he touched on, I think is very important, is this idea of integrated water management. And realizing that aspects of the water system, both in terms of supply and demand, are very well connected, and the solutions have feedbacks that stretch beyond one area to the other, right? So I like the example of the use of cloud seeding to promote more rain rain enhancement. That has multiple opportunities, and certainly when we think of groundwater as a non-renewable supply source, rainwater, rainfall harvesting or cloud seeding could help to boost those groundwater supplies. And when you also think about things like wastewater treatment, right? So when we do the wastewater treatment, yes, examples, we can treat it to a standard that's appropriate to apply for agriculture. We can also use that same water to pump or to recharge these groundwater aquifers. So in a way, at best, we could be increasing the level of these groundwater resources, or at worst, in an ideal situation, we're balancing out the pumping with recharge. So at least not making the existing groundwater resource levels worse. Same thing with conservation, water conservation on both the agricultural and urban side. Any sort of advancement that's done there could reduce the pressure on desal to having to meet that shortfall in water demand. So it's more than just, we're increasing water supply here, we're reducing water demand there. Any improvement in one part of the system has a feedback effect that's beneficial everywhere else. Groundwater, increasing groundwater supply, reducing, the stress on desal, and then by doing that, potentially reducing the impact of things from the environmental side, as how do you dispose of the brine, that type of thing. So I agree with the notion of having an integrated water management approach that recognizes how all of these systems are connected and how improvement in one area can be seen somewhere else.
Thank you, Dr. Mahmoud. Zainab, I just want to bring you back in, thanks to Microsoft Arabia hosting today's podcast, to give the final comments to yourself.
Well, it's been really interesting discussion, and as you said, it's been planned for half an hour now. It's it's much longer than that, but it's really interesting and engaging, and all of the points raised by our great speakers are very important in this very important and scarce resource, which is water. The opportunity for technology to play a role in the management and to understand more is there. So there are technologies that are existing, AI, IoT, to manage the water, but then innovation. There is a huge room for innovation as well. To take part in this in the development of management and understanding of water scarcity. It's been great discussion. I'd like to thank you all for being part of this amazing podcast. Thank you.
I'd like to thank all of our speakers as well. Thank you, Dr. Abdulaziz Al-Shabani, the Ministry of Environment, Water, and Agriculture in Saudi Arabia, Dr. Mohammed Mahmoud from the Middle East Institute, as well as Tarek Nada from Aqua Power, and of course, again, our host, Zaina Alamin from Microsoft Arabia. But thank you very much, everyone, for your insights and intelligence today. For those listening from our audience, please feel free to follow all organizations and our speakers on social media, and of course, Microsoft Arabia's social networks, where we will be publishing this podcast. And we look forward, of course, to hosting you all again down the road for another discussion on this topic.